catches me by surprise. Okay, and I'm going to start recording if I can find the recording button. Okay, hello everyone. Hello. Do not see the recording button. That's okay. It's going to be recorded in the group. Good morning, everyone. This is Georgia Ryle. I am with our group, Healing, Alignment, and Shifts. I am the owner of Holistic Healing from Within. Here to welcome Amber Maier here. She is from the Akashic Angel Healing Academy. She has a passion for helping you discover your soul purpose, awaken your unique gifts, and move past your blocks so you can fully embrace your power and purpose. Amber uses a unique blend of intuitive life coaching with guidance and healing from your Akashic Records, also from the angels and the soul to help you take powerful steps toward your, Let me start that sentence over. Amber uses a unique blend of intuitive life coaching with guidance and healing from your Akashic Records, angels, and soul to help you take powerful steps forward on your soul path and quantum leaps in your personal healing and vision for your life. She also teaches others how to access the magic of the Akashic Records and Angel Healing in her Akashic Angel Healing Academy. Welcome, Amber, and I'm sorry for flubbing your intro, but I'm so glad you're here today.
Thanks for inviting me on. I always welcome a conversation with you. It's always a lot of fun.
Yes, it is. So tell us about the Akashic Records and what can people expect from the Akashic Records? Because I know people are like, oh, what are they? I don't know. Are they evil? No.
No, thanks for inviting me on. I'm really excited to share the magic of the Akashic Records with you all today. And as on my own journey, I have found so much power working with the Akashic Records. I'm, as you heard, like I'm a coach, I'm a reader, I'm a healer, but out of all the things, I resonate most with being a healer. And so even though the Akashic Records are this amazing place to get guidance, I actually fell in love with them because of all like the profound aha moments I was given through my healing journey. So I really see the Akashic Records as this like amazing healing tool, like a way to really help you start to understand your soul's calling and help you get onto your personal path to purpose. And as an added bonus, I also found that my intuitive gifts really started to blossom when I worked in the Akashic Records as well. And so what I want to be able to share with you all today is about what the heck are the Akashic Records anyway? And why do you want to learn about them? Why do you want to access them? Whether you get a reading from someone else or you learn how to do it yourself. So I want to talk a little bit about what they are, like who and how you receive guidance in the records and how you would access your records. And then I thought we could do a little demo too, so people could see what a reading is like. Does that sound okay?
Oh, that sounds awesome. Yes.
Awesome. So the Akashic Records, a lot of times I hear people like, I go to different like, intuitive and healing events. And sometimes people will walk by where I'm sitting and with signs that say Akashic Records and people are like, Akashic Records, what the heck is that? And like, I can totally relate because the first time I saw a sign about the Akashic Records, that was exactly my reaction. I was like, what the hell is that? And I just kept walking. And eventually I paid a little bit more attention and it said something like, open up a conversation with your soul. And I was like, wait a minute, that's exactly what I want to do. And so Akashic isn't necessarily a very intuitive word to understand what it means. If I were to name the Akashic Records, I would just call them the soul records. A little bit more, it's a very intuitive word to understand what it means. If I were to name the Akashic Records.
There we go.
And so you can think of the Akashic Records like an energetic recording of your soul's journey over every lifetime. You can think of your Akashic Records like the endless library of your soul, or maybe a little bit more modern would be like the internet or a database. The Akashic Records contain just a ton of information about your past lives, current life, future lives, every choice and experience that your soul's ever had. And I think it's also good to explain that the Akashic Records go beyond the single soul, and it also includes knowledge gathered by all consciousness over all time. And so other names for the Akashic Records can include like the Book of Life, Soul Records, the Hall of Records. A lot of people who have done research on the Akashic Records actually find references to the Akashic Records in different versions of the Bible. So I think that's pretty cool too. So then that gives us to the word Akashic. Like what does Akashic mean? Akashic is formed from the word Akasha, which is a Sanskrit word. Basically, it can be loosely translated to like ether or spirit. It's basically energy in its earliest state. And so where a lot of people will visualize the Akashic Records as this like great hall or this library in the heavens, we do that in order to make the idea of it like more logical or more comprehensible. But in reality, the Akashic Records isn't a location. It's simply energy that you can access. And the good news is that everyone has access to their own Akashic Records. So pretty fun stuff.
That's amazing. I love it.
I thought too, Georgia, it might be fun since you're certified in the Akashic Records. What has been your experience like with the Akashic Records? And then I want to share a little bit about why I love the Akashic Records and all the different things you can do with them too.
Well, what's amazed me is how much information you can get out of there, and the more I do it, the quicker it comes, and the more detailed it's becoming. I absolutely love it. And then when going this next step to the angel healing side of it, I know you haven't gotten into that. I'm an energy healer, and I was used to, I have my own modality for my healing sessions. And so when you taught us to do the angel healing with the Akashic Records, it was so much fun to bring the angels in and to witness them doing the healing. I kind of am bossy, so I kind of direct them just a little bit, but they just kind of do their own thing anyway, whether I direct them or not. So, but yeah, the Akashic Records are absolutely amazing, and I'm just always amazed at what comes up.
I had a student once that described what she was used to receiving through her intuition as like an appetizer. And then when she opened the Akashic Records, it was like a full course meal.
That's a good description.
I thought it was an awesome description, because a lot of times, like if I'm just accessing my intuition, I feel like I get these like little snippets, little feelings, like maybe a word or a phrase, and then I open up the Akashic Records and it's just like, like all the information, all the details. It's awesome. So why might we want to access our Akashic Records? I think the Akashic Records are a place that can really give you insight on the purpose in your life. It can help you understand your lessons that your soul's going through, and can give you all sorts of different answers to help you move forward on your soul path. And so I really feel like the Akashic Records are a powerful tool for your awakening and healing journey. And so I wanted to share some of the directions you can take in your Akashic Records. The first thing I want to talk about is soul purpose. Out of the thousands and thousands of readings that I've done, I can tell you by far the number one question I get is, what is my soul purpose, or what is my life purpose? And so it's an amazing place to explore your purpose. And having a better understanding of your soul purpose, I think, can help you understand the big themes in your life, what your soul wants to experience, and really help you keep on path, make things just more clear and understandable for you, like why you are who you are, why you're experiencing what you're experiencing, and be able to see the deeper gift in each one of your experiences. Another really fun thing that people like to do in the Akashic Records is to explore past lives. And that's actually one of the things, probably like the second question I get beyond what are the Akashic Records, like what does that even mean, is I'll hear like, oh, I've heard the Akashic Records, like, isn't that the place that you explore your past lives? And so yes, and I want everyone to know that past lives are only one little aspect of information that's stored in the Akashic Records. The Akashic Records goes beyond the sum of our past lives, and where learning about our past lives can be fascinating in itself, I often find that our past life experiences actually create a lot of challenges for us in our current soul's incarnation. And so in your Akashic Records, you can get glimpses of past lives to understand where some of these challenges, fears, or patterns have started. So again, I think being able to take glimpses at your past lives can really help you on your healing journey again in this lifetime. But you can do a whole lot more in your Akashic Records than view your past lives, which I'm sure you've experienced too. Another big thing that it can be super helpful in the Akashic Records that I've found a ton of power in is really getting a deeper understanding on the lessons that I'm working on in this lifetime. And so a big part of our soul purpose in each lifetime is to grow and develop as a soul and to continue to increase your level of consciousness. And so part of how we do that is we master different lessons. And so if we don't master a lesson in a previous lifetime, we carry it into each lifetime after that until we have the growth that we need in that area. And lessons I find often show up as patterns. And so I think anyone who is listening to this can probably very easily think of at least one or two frustrating patterns that seems to follow you everywhere in your life, like
Yes.
a lot of times, big ones I hear are like, why do I always seem to like date people that I end up having to take care of? Like it's a different man, but it's basically the same. Or, why do I always have just enough money but I can't seem to get ahead? Like something always comes up, that kind of thing. And so these frustrating patterns are oftentimes tied to different lessons that we're carrying with us. And we're going to continue to repeat those frustrating patterns until we learn to do something differently with it. And then what I have also found is that these patterns typically come from some sort of limiting beliefs. They might be conscious or unconscious, oftentimes unconscious. And the Akashic Records, I find, is this really powerful tool just to like cut deep, like right away, like here's the core of the issue. I joke and I've said that I love the Akashic Records and Angel so much because sometimes I have felt that in like a 10-minute reading, I probably made more progress than I would have in 10 years of therapy because it just gets right in there. Like, here's the root cause. And I think sometimes when we understand what that root cause is, then we can start to understand what are all my actions and behaviors and thoughts that are connected to this. And it allows you then to start to unravel that and make different choices and be able to move out of that frustrating pattern that you might be in the first place.
I want to make a comment in there. So you were talking about how quickly you could get to the root cause, and solve the problem. I was working with Linda Rowe's book the other day because she's got questions in there, just exercises to do. And so one of those was forgiving somebody. And so she said, go back and look at maybe what caused it and see what started it to forgive it. But also, and you tell us this too, that's a spiritual being. That's just not that person that you see. Everybody looks through a filter. And so when you can go back and look at them as their spiritual being instead of just their human form, it just gives you a whole new perspective of where people are coming from.
Yeah. I think that perspective shift is so powerful. Like we need to be able to see ourselves, others, our lives through a different lens. And I feel like working with the angels and the Akashic Records is almost like putting on a different pair of glasses to be able to like look through the world at. So another really powerful thing that you can do with the Akashic Records is really explore and heal your relationships. And so it's really helpful tool to gain deeper insight and understanding of the relationships that you have in your life. And so you can discover more of the purpose of your relationship in this lifetime. You can look back at soul history on what's led you to where you are with another soul in your life. You can get a better understanding of challenges that maybe you're experiencing with some people that you're close with in your life. You can understand what you've agreed to do for each other as well. I think, one of my favorite questions that I like to ask in the Akashic Records is how I can best support other people in my life. So a lot of times, we have our very human, like, like we're both moms, like a lot of times we're like, this is what I should do as the mom,
Right.
but then sometimes you go into the Akashic Records and it's like, oh, I didn't think maybe that was actually what they needed, or that how I was helping might actually be hurting. Like I found that about myself a lot. I was like, oh, okay. So it was like, sometimes when you get that moment, that's the aha that feels like, but I'm still like super grateful to get it, because then I can stop that behavior that might not be actually helping my relationship and helping my loved ones. So that's been a real powerful thing.
Always an eye opener.
Always an eye opener, yes. But usually it's about us. I always like to say, like, we're our own biggest block,
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, another fun thing that you can do in the Akashic Records that I find people get really excited about is it's also a really great place to explore and develop your spiritual gifts. And so you can learn about what gifts are, what's blocking you from using them, how best to go about moving past the blocks and further develop them. You can look at what are gifts that you've had from previous lifetimes that you've brought into this lifetime and how can you access them better. So lots of fun there. But like I said, I just think that the Akashic Records are a profoundly powerful healing tool, that there's just tons of healing available in the Akashic Records, just simply in getting your questions answered. In that process, what you're doing is you're really making the unconscious conscious. And so like that example I gave with like different beliefs that we might have, if we understand where it came from and how our behaviors are connected to it, it gives us so much more awareness that then we can consciously choose to do something different instead of being in that pattern that we're practically asleep to. The other thing is that the Akashic Records vibrate at a super high rate. And so just simply spending time in the Akashic Records can really bring you a lot of healing too. So
Yeah, I was going to say, being aware, the Akashic Records help you become aware of where you're stuck or where you've got an issue or something you need to get through. And just being aware sometimes is so healing. It
it's
just
like,
gives you such a bigger, better perspective of life. And because, we, like I said, we live on looking through our filters of our experience and our limiting beliefs and, past lives, whatever. And so when we get a better perspective of something, it just changes the whole outlook.
I absolutely agree. My personal belief is that no healing can happen without awareness, or at least not long term. Like maybe you
Right.
could hear something, but it's going to come back if you don't have awareness around it. I have I call it my 3 A's of healing. First is awareness, then is acceptance, and then is action. So we have to be aware of what is occurring in our life, how we're maybe creating our reality in some ways and what we need to do different. We need to be able to accept that, maybe forgive ourselves. And then we actually then have to take aligned action to help us get to where we need to be. And kind of without any of those 3 steps, we end up getting stuck somewhere in the process. But and I think, a lot of times when we're talking about this, the Akashic Records, we're talking about our awakening, because we're talking about us growing into greater consciousness. You can't grow into greater consciousness if you have no awareness of yourself. So again, yeah, super powerful tool. So as you heard, there's just like endless ways that you can play and grow in the Akashic Records.
An endless number of questions that you can ask. It's not limited to 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. It's thousands, hundreds of thousands.
Right. Absolutely. Another question I get from people a lot are like, who are the guides of the records? Like, who are we getting information from? How are we getting information? And so the guides that you're going to receive information from the Akashic Records, whether you're receiving a reading from someone else or you learn how to read your Akashic Records for yourself, come in many forms. And so different teachers that you might learn about the Akashic Records from might have different names from them. I use guides really as like an umbrella term. It's basically guides or being of light that can take many forms. They could be past loved ones, they could be angels, or just any other type of light being that maybe has never even been in a physical body. And as you know, I also work really closely with angels in the Akashic Records too. And that's why I have the Akashic Angel Healing Academy, because I can't actually separate the two because I think they work together really powerfully. I found that there are 3 archangels that also oversee the records. So you might receive information from different angels in the records, but I found that there's these 3 that they're almost like guardians of the records as well. And that's Archangel Jermiel, Archangel Metatron, and Archangel Raziel. And so when we do our little demo to show folks what it's like to have an Akashic record reading, you'll actually hear me call those angels out by name. The other thing that I think is kind of fun and interesting about the guides of the records is that most people experience receiving information, like if they're the reader, whether for themselves or someone else, they usually experience receiving the information from guides in a way that they're not super conscious of who they're getting the information from. I like to say that the guides are kind of like nameless and faceless in the records. And in some ways, I think that takes the pressure off, because you're not also trying to figure out now who who is this being that's giving this to me? You know, but you're just receiving the information really directly. Is
Oh,
that
and
been your
you were talking
experience?
about receiving, how you receive. So my experience too has been that when I'm giving a reading, a lot of times the person that I'm giving the reading to is very intuitive,
Mhm.
or has gifts of their own. So part of my um so I introduce them to the records. I tell them what I'm going to be doing, but I also like to say, and after I open the records and we start asking the questions, you're probably going to receive information also.
Mhm.
Please feel free to share it with me. This is not a time that you have to be quiet. I don't mind you talking. Just share what comes up with you, because that will just enhance the whole experience. So I love that.
Yeah, I think it's super fun. A lot of times, yeah, when you're opening someone else's records, they just kind of follow along. And I actually, one of the things I like to do when I'm doing readings with students of mine who have learned how to go into the Akashic records, I'm like, let's both open your records and we'll both see what we get and then talk about it. Because I think, like you said, it just really enhances that experience. But I think it also really helps people build trust in their own intuition, where
Yes.
they're like, I got that too, you know. Um, so you receive information from the Akashic records through your intuitive senses. And so a lot of times we call those like our clairs. And I think you shared with your members of your group here some information about the clairs already, but I'm just gonna
Go ahead.
run through them real briefly. So basically our clair senses, the words are made up of like two separate words. Clair translates loosely into clear, and then it's followed by whatever the specific sense is. So like clairvoyance, for example, means clear seeing or clear vision. And so people might receive information in the Akashic records through clairvoyance, which is really the ability to receive intuitive or psychic information through images, colors, symbols. But I think what's important to remember is that I think people think they're going to see it with their physical eyes. It's you're seeing it with your third eye, which is basically like your imagination. So, you know, if you were to close your eyes and imagine a beautiful beach with white sand and palm trees, like how you're seeing that sand, how you're seeing the color of the ocean, how you're seeing the palm trees, that's how the information is going to come through, not actual colors you see with your eyes. That's probably like 99.9% of people don't actually see things with their physical eyes. Then there's clairaudience, which translates loosely into clear hearing. And so this is the ability to hear what can't be heard through your physical ears. So again, it's not actual sounds that you're hearing through your ears, which I think is what some people get caught up with there. They expect it to be something external to them, but it's something that you hear more in your head. And so oftentimes it sounds like you, because you are who is in your head. So a lot of times that can be like, you know, hearing words or phrases, sometimes different sounds. For me, I do a lot of channeled writing, and my channeled writing is super connected to my clairaudience. And so it almost, like if you've ever journaled before, and it almost feels like streaming audio and you hardly can keep up with like what's coming through, that very well could be channeled writing through your clairaudience.
I get a lot of songs too. Music
You
is
do, yeah.
really big with
Uh-huh.
me.
Yeah, I go through phases of that, and I really should ask my angels to bring that back for me. I love it when I wake up to a song and I'm just like, oh yeah, like there's like so much meaning to it. But that would happen to me in readings for a while too, where I would just suddenly start hearing like lyrics to a song that's for the person that I'm reading for. So yeah, it's our angels and our guides can have really fun ways to communicate with us. There's clairsentience. This means clear feeling. And so this is the ability to gain information through feeling. And so that might be emotions. So you might feel other people's emotions, or maybe you feel different sensations in or around your body. And so this one's oftentimes really associated with people who identify strongly as an empath. Then lastly, there is claircognizance. And so this basically means clear knowing. And so with this intuitive skill, you just know things. You just know things. You don't know how, you don't know why, but you know things. And this one's often associated with your crown chakra and downloads. So there's a lot of different ways that the information can come through. Some people find that they are really strongly get information through maybe one or two of the types of clairs. And some people find that it just kind of flows in through all of them through that time. So it's definitely learning how to listen to your intuition is something that you have to do by experiencing. You can read about it as much as you want, but everyone experiences it a little bit differently. So you have to kind of figure out how the messages come through to you, which can be frustrating, but it's also can be really fun.
I know one time I had never been one to really feel things inside my body. And I was doing a reading one time and all of a sudden I'm getting a headache. I'm like, I didn't have a headache before I started. Why do oh, it's not mine. Do you have a headache? I have a question for us. Cotina Floyd asked, could either of you explain what does it mean if you are a person that actually sees or hears outside of your head?
I think it's still an intuitive skill. It's just that for most people, it doesn't come out that way. And so people do have the ability to be able to see energy and intuitive information with their physical eyes, with their physical ears. It's just not something that happens for the majority of people. Is there anything you want to add to that, Georgia?
No, I was going to say it's just an extra gift people have. I don't have that yet, but that's one of those I'm going to be working on. I really want to see that. I know friends that can see like the color of the aura, can see distinct things on the body that are internal to the body. And I would really love to add those two things to my toolbox. So
yeah. And there's still part of me that wonders like how much of it is really your physical eyes and ears. Like part of me thinks it's just like those senses have become so loud for you that it appears the same. But for most folks, it's more subtle than that.
gotcha. Makes sense. Makes sense because to me it would be like you've gotten so practiced at it, so familiar with it that like if somebody says there's a ghost in this room, okay, so I can't see ghosts, but if you give me a description and tell me, I can just about tell you where it is.
Yeah.
When I close my eyes, I can see a picture of it, even though I can't see it with my eyes open. When I close my eyes, I can. So I guess Cotina is very special. I know this woman is amazing, and so she just has the ability to see and hear without having to close her eyes.
Yeah. Like with your example with ghosts, that's similar to how I am too. I guess the most I like feel like I'm seeing with my physical eyes is like, you know how if like you look at a light and then you look somewhere, it like just looks almost like a little bit distorted or something.
Right.
I'll see that for, like a flash or two or something. And so I know that that's where it is. And then it's more like if I want to see more of the details, I'm seeing that with my third eye.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Good question. Another question I get about the Akashic Records then is like, how do I access my Akashic Records? And there are a variety of methods that you can use to get into the Akashic Records. Some people actually, when they consciously go into their Akashic Records the first time, they're like, I've been here. And so you actually can get into your Akashic Records through like deep meditation and things like that. But one of the most common ways is to read what's called a pathway prayer, which is a prayer that really has more of like an energetic imprint of the records. And what I like about pathway prayers is that it's simple and it's reliable. I read the prayer, I'm in the records every time. And so I think that can really help simplify it and also help you gain confidence in it too. There are different pathway prayers out there. Typically a pathway prayer is going to have like an opening prayer, and that basically opens up the Akashic Records. And then there's usually also going to be a closing prayer, in which of course closes the records at the end of the session. And so I personally find that I don't think that there's one prayer that is the best or better than any others. And I will say the same thing about my own prayer. It's not the best. It's not better than others. It's about it's about finding what resonates for you. And so you probably remember from class, Georgia, is I give a variety of pathway prayers, like pick out the one that works best for you, play around with it, see what resonates with you. And you can also write your own Akashic record pathway prayer as well, but it's also not necessary. Before I wrote my own pathway prayer, I used Linda Howe's prayer for a long time, and then I took her prayer and I just modified it slightly so it felt more like me, and I used that for a long time. And then I decided it felt like it was time to write my own prayer, and I worked with my guides on that. So really, it's just finding about what works for you. Typically, the pathway prayers are going to connect you to a higher power. It's going to seek guidance from beings of light for the greatest good of all. Maybe it's going to include some language to help you reduce distractions and kind of stay grounded and out of your ego. A lot of times it also includes the name for yourself, if you're reading for yourself, or the person that you're reading for, to really connect that specific energy. So those are some kind of commonalities that you might find in the pathway prayer. And so another piece that is common in pathway prayers too is to read part of it out loud and read part of it silently. And so when we do the demo of this reading on you in a little bit, that's what people experience too, is you're going to hear me say some of it out loud. And then there's going to be part that I read silently to myself. What I always think is fun is when I share the prayer with others, people are like, oh, the part that you read silently, you're just repeating some of the stuff that you've already read out loud. Like they think it's like a big secret, which is like why we don't read it out loud, which is totally not true. So there's nothing secret that's happening in it. Really, the idea of starting out loud and moving to reading it in your mind is that you're helping move yourself from like your conscious mind into your subconscious mind, which is your subconscious mind that really allows your intuition and your guides and everything to come through. So are there any other questions before we jump in and do a little demo?
Any more questions, ladies? I think we are good to go. But if y'all have any, just put them in the chat and we'll bring them up.
All right. Well, Georgia, I assume I have your permission to open up your records.
Yes, ma'am, you do.
And I'm saying that out loud for everyone because you can open your records whenever you want, but you have to have someone else's permission before you would open their records. And so what I'm going to do is like I mentioned, I'm going to read the pathway prayer to open your records. And I know you're super familiar with this procedure. But then there's going to be a part where I'm going to say some things silently, but then you'll know that I'm done because I'm going to announce that your records are open at the end. And then we can discuss any of the questions you would like to ask today. And then at the end of the session, I'll read the closing pathway prayer, which is a lot shorter. And so while I read this pathway prayer to open your records, feel free to do anything that you like to do to get grounded, whether, it's a little grounding meditation or just taking some open, big breaths to open up the energy a little bit.
Okay.
All right. Creator of all that is, Archangel Jermael, Raziel, and Metatron, and all the guides of the Akasha, thank you for allowing me to be a clear channel of the truth through the Akashic records. Keep us grounded, present, and focused, and help us step into our highest selves. I ask for the highest amount of healing and guidance available for the greatest good of all. Help me to see Georgia as she is seen, known, and loved in the light of the Akashic records. Help me to access the inspiration, empowerment, and power of Georgia's soul in the Akashic records, and help me to share the wisdom, healing, and compassion for Georgia in the Akashic records. The records are now open. The other thing I should mention about the pathway prayer is that it's meant to be read. It's not meant to be memorized. I know that was something that I've heard from students too, where they're just like, oh my God, like how did you remember all of that? You're totally off the hook. You're actually you're not meant to remember it. You're meant to just read it. So
Best part.
Yeah. It makes it so easy. All right, Georgia, do you have a question you would like to ask your angels and guides in the records?
Sure. So you were talking about things repeating over and over and over again. That would be me at this point. Going into the same job situation. I
Mhm.
seem to work with the same style bosses and same people.
Mhm.
Help me get past that one.
Yeah, so kind of like what is causing that? What would help heal this pattern? All right. And then you know this about me, Georgia, but sharing with others is I do a little bit of listening to your guides and, you know, jot a few words and notes down as that's coming in. And then I start to share with you when I feel like the information is coming together. And then I keep channeling as I talk. So I'm going to take just a moment to be quiet, just to fully bring my attention to your guides on these questions. Georgia, do you tend to be a peacekeeper? Has that been like a pattern in your lifetime?
Yeah.
That's a lot of what your guides want to talk about, is it kind of revolves around that. And so I don't know what your experience is with your work and your bosses and your people, but my guess with the energy that your guides are showing me is that oftentimes it kind of ends up feeling like you're taken advantage of and not really listened to and that sort of thing. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's
And
because if I don't allow that, this is just from my perspective. If I don't, I tend to be very blunt when I speak, and
mhm,
typically when I do speak, it's taken wrong.
mhm,
As if I'm being disrespectful and uh, undermining somebody's authority.
mhm.
And so I tend to let a lot of things slide. And the problem with that is by the time they slide, I have gotten in such a knot that I have to finally release.
Yeah, yeah, and you have this like deep fear underneath it. Like I speak up, I'm gonna get my head cut off. Is kind of the feeling of it. Like I just feel this like tight, anxious
Yes.
fear
Anxious.
energy with it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And so really like what's under that this pattern is this it feels safer when you're a peacekeeper. And so you continue to stay in that pattern. And so, some of the more of like the behaviors on your part that will help you break out of this is looking at your boundaries, like what really works for you and what doesn't, and then really sticking to your boundaries and not allowing yourself to make excuses while you're letting it bend again this time is kind of like the feeling that I get was like, well, I guess this time it's okay, like always kind of like finding that reason for it. And that continuing to learn that expression is really important in this lifetime. You've had past lifetimes where expression probably literally did get you killed, so a lot of times our souls end up experiencing these extreme differences, like I expressed myself and I died, to to now, like in this lifetime, is understanding like how can I express myself in a way that I will be heard, I will feel good about it, and I know I'm not going to die. So it's kind of almost like bringing these experiences into like this together into this middle and be more balanced. So there's it feels like this cycle is going to continue to happen until you really express yourself, your ideas, your needs, be able to say no, be able to have clear boundaries for yourself and stick up for those. Basically your guides are saying that when you come up with excuses to not uphold your boundaries, it's basically like showing yourself over and over that you're not the priority. You're not as important in it. And so it just really builds up your own personal power and your own self-worth the more and more you like choose yourself in those situations. And some of it is really stepping past that fear of like, that fear of like having your head cut off if you speak up. Your guides are really showing that you've done a lot of growth in how you communicate. So it's not so much a lesson of learning how to communicate in a way that others are going to be able to hear you. It's more about being able to step past the fear that it's going to cause you some sort of trouble, if that makes sense.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's the fear that's telling you I'm too blunt and people won't be able to take it. That over time you've really learned to be direct and compassionate at the same time. That they're saying that that's actually a gift of yours, is bluntness and directness. And I think sometimes when people say direct, we think it means harsh, and they're like totally different things. And so they want you to like erase your thoughts of direct being harsh, and know that being direct is actually a massive gift. Like think about all the times when people are so fuzzy and it just like sends you into a whirlwind, like how nice it would be to actually just have them like just put it out there what they're thinking. Like you give people that gift, and you're also super compassionate and weave those two things together. So your guides want you to like just completely erase any thoughts of you being harsh, that what you have is really a gift of directness and compassion that comes together.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yes, I love that, because you were definitely talking directly to my guides, because that's exactly how it feels. Because over the years, my directness and my bluntness has been received as harsh, especially if it was at a boss. Even though that wasn't how I meant it, that's how they perceived it. And so, over the years, I've just started biting my tongue more, and because it's almost like they expect me to say something that is not going to be appropriate. That's how they receive it. It's not appropriate. And I'm like, I've always been a person that stood up for myself. And I don't like beating around the bush, but I find that as I get older and this fear gets a little bit deeper, that sometimes it's hard for me to get words out. But as part of the healing process, because you're right, I have been working on that. I am starting to, it's another perception thing. I'm having to change my perception of myself and the way I speak, and realize that what they're hearing is not all about me. A lot of times it's about them and what their filters are. And so I'm working on believing more in myself, and that I have value, and that I do have something important to say, and what I say is valuable. So that is something I've been working on. So yes.
Yeah, it's like when you don't allow other people to have 50% of that accountability for that interaction and conversation, it's like you're taking 100% of that blame on yourself.
Yes.
And no matter if that conversation was absolutely perfect in every single way, they still could take it wrong. And so I think that's part of that fear of having to surrender to other people are going to take things the way that they take things. Sometimes you actually have no control over that.
Yeah. I believe it.
Yeah. Well, I think this would be a good time to show people how to close the records too. So what we do at the end of a session then is to close the Akashic Records. And again, it's just, it's a much shorter prayer this time. And this one you read out loud. I'd like to thank the creator of all that is, and all the archangels and guides of the Akasha for your love, guidance, and healing. The records are now closed. Thank you. It is done. It is done. It is done. So how was that experience for you, Georgia?
I loved it. It's always good to do a record reading with you, because you always hit the mark, just right on, spot on. I mean, like I said, it was you could have been in a conversation I had last night. So
Yeah, yeah. I think it just shows like, here's the pattern and the frustrating thing that I'm having a hard time getting out of. And then the records are just like, here it is. Here's some things
that
you
was
can do.
that was definitely confirmation of what has been coming to me lately, that I've just got to come to terms that um, it's not all about me. It's about people's perceptions and their filters also.
Yeah.
So, and if I don't step up, then I am going to continue to get run over, and that's not something I like doing. So,
No, no. You're such a powerful soul. I would imagine it's almost painful to try to like keep it contained.
thank you so much, Amber. This has been so rich in information, and I hope everybody takes away a lot of information from this. Oh, do you want to tell about your new program starting?
Yeah, well, what I wanted to share is if this really piqued your interest about the Akashic Records and the angels, I actually just completed a free 3-day workshop earlier this week. It was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday this week. But if you're interested, I'll share the replay link where you can go and catch the replays for those. The first day was about awakening your intuitive gifts with the angels, and so I shared some of the big reasons that I have found over years of working with people on what keeps them from really realizing their gifts. And then Archangel Raphael comes in and shares a beautiful heart healing meditation. And so you can watch the replay of that. The second day might super interest you after today, because you got to learn about the Akashic Records, and then you got to see a demo. But in the workshop that I did, I actually lead you through opening your own Akashic Records, so you can experience the difference between your intuition and your Akashic Records. And so you can watch the replay of that and have that experience yourself. And then the third day, you get to meet some of my graduate students and learn about how working with the angels and Akashic Records have transformed their lives. This workshop was a kickoff to the opening of my Akashic Angel Healing Academy, which is now open for registration too. So Georgia, I'll just make sure that you have the link for the replay for the Discover Your Path to Purpose workshop
And I'll put it
replay.
in the comments. Yeah.
Wants to check that out, and yeah, and I think you'll have a lot of fun with it.
You would. I really strongly encourage you to go check out those videos, and if this is really something that piques your interest, go join her academy. It's absolutely amazing. Number one, it's going to help you, if you don't know your gifts, going to help you discover your gifts. And number two, will help you strengthen them very much. And there's lots of practice in there. It's lots of fun. You get to make new lifelong friends, and it's an absolutely amazing experience.
It was so fun to have you in there. So fun. I just shared the link to the replays with you and in a chat to you in case you want to share this with
Okay.
the replay or the live that's happening now.
All right. I have one more question that popped up. Were you feeling or hearing this while you were getting the information on me?
My guides work with me through all the clairs, so they can kind of start to come through in a lot of different ways. And so I'm trying to think. Some of it was hearing, like I very clearly heard peacekeeper right away, so that was definitely like some clairaudience there. And then I was also getting a lot of messages through clairsentience. Like I could really feel the different fear that Georgia was feeling, and just like this like tightness of fear in your throat in particular. And like it almost felt like a little bit like suffocating, like and there was some claircognizance that was happening in it too. I'm not sure. I'm trying to think if I had any clairvoyance in this one. I'm not remembering anything specifically, but the way I typically work is when I'm doing a reading, that's part of why I jot things down. Because if you were to like ask me even like 5 minutes later, I'd be like, oh gosh, what was it? Like it's almost like a little closer to like a dreamlike state, how when you're in it, you're like, oh, I'm totally going to remember this. And then,
Right.
you wake up and you're like, what was that again? So yeah, so I know I at least had the 3 out of the 4. I'm not sure.
Yeah. And Quotina, I would really encourage you to go listen to her videos for this workshop she just did. And you would probably absolutely love her Akashic Angel Healing Academy. I'm telling you, you probably would. So I'm going to share that link in just a few minutes when we're done here. But Amber, thank you for being on here. I have so thoroughly enjoyed it. And if you will hang on a moment, I'm going to see if I can cut it off of Facebook, and then I want to talk to you for a few minutes. So thank you. And everybody, I hope you enjoyed this, and please check out her replays.